This gap is only about 20 miles wide. But when ships avoid it, one of the world's most important trade routes can become around 10 days longer. That means more fuel, fewer available ships, higher insurance, delayed cargo, and pressure at ports thousands of miles away. And here is the part most people miss. Even if this route becomes safer tomorrow, the return through Bab el-Mandeb could create a second wave of disruption. Because this is not just a story about a strait being dangerous. It is a story about what happens when the world builds its supply chains around shortcuts that can suddenly disappear. Bab el-Mandeb sits between Yemen on one side and Djibouti and Eritrea on the other. It is the southern gate of the Red Sea, connecting the Indian Ocean and the Gulf of Aden to the Suez route into the Mediterranean. That geography became globally important after the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869, because ships traveling between Asia and Europe could avoid sailing all the way around Africa. At its narrowest, the strait is roughly 20 miles or 32 kilometers wide. Param Island divides it into two channels, and large-scale international shipping generally concentrates through the deeper Western Channel. So on a map, Bab el-Mandeb looks small. But inside the shipping system, it functions like a valve. When the valve is open, trade flows quickly through the Red Sea. When the valve becomes risky, the pressure moves across the entire system. The reason this place became central to the world economy is the same reason it can become vulnerable. Ships do not spread evenly across the ocean. They follow predictable corridors. That predictability is useful for trade, but dangerous when a hostile actor can threaten the corridor. Since late 2023, attacks around the Red Sea and Bab el-Mandeb have forced shipping companies to calculate whether the shorter route is worth the risk. The U.S. Maritime Administration's active 2026 advisory still warns commercial vessels about the regional threat environment across the Red Sea, Bab el-Mandeb Strait, Gulf of Aden, Arabian Sea, and Somali Basin. It lists a wide range of possible hostile actions: drones, unmanned surface vessels, missiles, small boat attacks, illegal boardings, detentions, and seizures. That does not mean every ship is attacked or that the risk is constant every day. But for a shipping company, the question is not only what happened yesterday. The question is what could happen during this voyage with this cargo, this flag, this ownership structure, and this route. This is where the geography becomes a bill. According to IMF PortWatch, the Red Sea lane normally facilitates about 15% of global maritime trade volume and more than 22,000 transit calls per year. When that flow is disrupted, a company has two bad choices. It can keep using the shorter route and accept the security risk. Or it can avoid the strait, sail around the Cape of Good Hope, and pay for distance instead. ING's shipping analysis estimates that the Cape detour adds more than 3,000 nautical miles and roughly 10 days on routes between Asia and Northwest Europe. 10 days does not sound dramatic until it is multiplied across container ships, fuel consumption, port slots, delivery schedules, crew time, insurance, and inventory that was expected to arrive sooner. A single ship can absorb a delay. A global shipping network cannot absorb thousands of delays without changing prices, schedules, and capacity. The route around Africa looks like a solution because it avoids the dangerous corridor. But it creates a different problem. A container ship is not just a vessel. It is a moving piece of global capacity. If a journey takes longer, that ship is unavailable for longer. ING estimates that the Red Sea diversion absorbs about 6% of global fleet capacity. That is like removing ships from the system without physically removing them. They still exist. They are still sailing. But because they are spending extra time at sea, there are fewer vessels available where the market expected them to be. This is why the impact spreads beyond the map. Ports become harder to schedule. Exporters wait for space. Importers wait for goods. Carriers adjust prices. And the cost of uncertainty gets built into decisions long before a container reaches the dock. The Cape route can reduce one risk, but it cannot make the system normal. It turns a security problem into a distance problem. And this is the twist. If the Red Sea route becomes safer, the world does not simply snap back to normal. Shipping companies have adjusted schedules around the longer route. Ports have adapted to different arrival patterns. Containers, crews, and vessels have moved into a new rhythm. Returning to the shorter route can release capacity, but it can also create congestion, repositioning problems, and rate volatility. ING has described a return to the Red Sea route as one of the key events to watch in container shipping for 2026. That is because the disruption has two sides. The first shock is avoidance. Ships leave the shortcut and go the long way. The second shock can be return. Ships come back, schedules compress, ports receive cargo in new waves, and the market has to reprice the system again. So the question is not only, is Bab el-Mandeb safe? The question is, when will companies believe it is safe enough to rebuild their schedules around it? That makes Bab el-Mandeb more than a waterway. It becomes a strategic lever. For the Houthis, the Strait has offered a way to project pressure far beyond Yemen's coastline. For shipping companies, it has become a calculation between time and risk. For naval forces, it is a corridor to monitor, defend, and deter. And for global trade, it is a reminder that not all disruption comes from closing a route completely. Sometimes the threat is enough. Official advisories show why shipmasters are asked to think about AIS signals, route variation, distance from the Yemeni coast, suspicious approaches, and reporting procedures. Those details matter because modern vessels are not invisible. They broadcast, they schedule, they repeat routes, and they move through channels that can be watched. This is the quiet power of a choke point. It does not need to stop every ship to change behavior. It only needs to make enough companies doubt the shortcut. Bab el-Mandeb is small on the map, but it exposes something huge about the world economy. Modern trade is fast because it is narrow. It relies on canals, straits, ports, lanes, and schedules that remove wasted distance. But the same narrowness that makes the system efficient also makes it fragile. That is why a 20-mile gap near Yemen can delay ships around Africa, reshape shipping prices, and force the world to remember that some of the most powerful places on Earth are not countries. They are passages.